Not an Accident podcast. We're back, guys. We're with Ryan Clements, and I wrote down, I could go through a whole bio about you, but I just have a couple high points. So, multi-million miler. That's a tongue twister.
Is 2 million multi?
I would say 2 million.
Yeah, sure.
I would say that's enough.
Sure.
Friday night ice cream, savant.
Oh man,
not as much.
I had to cut back on that a bit.
We'll talk about that.
Yeah.
King of the quickest email in skateboarding, for sure.
I'm an overachiever.
Okay, and based out of Tampa, Florida, you basically run and are a part of 3 different companies. So it's TheBoardr, which is a skateboarding events company. It's Excel Management, it's an agency where you manage skateboarders. And then you have the platform group that you guys started pretty recently, within the last year or so, I think.
Right after the pandemic. 3 years. 3 years right now. It'll be 3 years in August.
And you literally, what probably 90% of us grew up skateboarding, dreamed of doing, you build skate parks.
Yeah, design and build. And a lot of that's consultation too, because people don't even know how to get to that part of like, how do I build a skate park in my community?
So how did you get to, let's step back. Let's go back to Ryan, maybe graduating high school, just starting out and stuff like that, which was only a few years ago, obviously. Tell us about where you came from and how this all kind of happened.
I'll start with saying, like, one thing that's crazy is that I graduated high school 33 years ago, and you don't think that is ever going to happen to you, and it was not too far from here at Lato High School, right here in Tampa. First couple years after that, like, I took a break, and then I went to community college. I quit community college because it was, I felt like the pace wasn't fast enough for me, and I used to think that I didn't like learning during that time, but I just, in hindsight, it was always that the teachers didn't reach me, or I just didn't. It didn't connect with me.
Okay.
It was slow paced, and I needed my shit to be fast. I needed to be like, what am I doing? And I knew that independence. There's a certain amount of money you need for independence, right? And I wanted that. And I had a good job working at an AC place as like a sheet metal guy, But I was mowing lawns on the weekend, so I quit college, quit that job, and started mowing lawns full time. I accidentally started a business. I didn't know what I was doing.
And that was just a couple years after basically your early 20s.
I was 20.
Like.
No,
okay.
I was
so
20.
You were 20.
I
wow.
was 20.
So this was quick.
I was 20, and I bought a house, but times were different, right? So I bought a house because I knew I didn't want to store my lawn equipment.
You were the meme. You were, I can afford a house.
My first house was $44,000 to put it into perspective, right? So I made $9.
If you can put down a down payment for $44,000 today, you're lucky.
I mean, you can't buy a pickup truck for $44,000. Exactly. It's insane, right? Awesome. So because I knew I didn't want to pay like a storage place $150 a month to store my lawn equipment. I was like, I wanted it at my house, so I bought a house, quit my job, started a business. And I say started a business. I didn't know I had no idea. I just started doing it. I knew I needed to like make a company. I don't remember how you did it back then. There was no internet. It didn't have the internet to go like, I'm gonna hit up Florida.gov and start a business. I don't even remember how I did it or anything. But I had an S corp when I was like 20.
Wow.
And then I learned how to. I just started mowing lawns, right? And then it was like, oh shit, I'm really busy. I have to figure out how am I going to structure this? How am I going to be organized? But I didn't know what I was doing. I was just doing it. I just had handwritten lists of like what I was going to do on Monday and what I was going to do on Tuesday, and it turned into a schedule. And then I hired 1 employee, then I hired 2 employees, then I got another truck and trailer. And I was just doing it, just trying to do it, trying to make something happen. Learned a ton, but at the same time, always a skateboarder, right?
Yeah.
Always a skateboarder. So that's like always been in my life. And
so
then,
do you think you moved quickly? I want to break that down though. Do you think you moved so quickly because you knew what you wanted? Like it sounded like I knew the amount of money that I needed to make to be comfortable at least. Not maybe that you didn't know what you wanted, but it seems like you had more information or more kind of awareness than most people do to get where you wanted to go.
I just knew that you need a certain amount of money to have a certain amount of freedom, right?
Yeah.
Right? It's just like a little bit.
Like you identified the lifestyle you kind of wanted.
Yeah. I just wanted it. And you always heard as a kid, like my dad was always like, you need to be self-employed, be self-employed. And of course, when I was going to be self-employed, he's like, what? You're quitting a good job with health insurance? And I was like, yeah, I'm going to just start a business that you always said do that. I'm going to go do it. But you don't know how to do this. You don't know how to do that. I'm like, I don't know how to do any of it. Yeah. I'm just going to try to do it. I mowed lawns on the side, as a kid, any kid knows how to do that, but real equipment, maintenance on equipment, scheduling, insurance, I didn't even know
this guy didn't show up. Like,
there you go. Yeah. Right. I didn't even know you needed commercial auto insurance when I was out. Like I had no idea. Like I didn't know anything. I just jumped in and did it. And then I had an S corp and it was like, the CPA's like, wait, you're not writing payroll checks to yourself? I'm like, I need to write payroll checks? I didn't know any of this stuff, so you just jump in and start doing it. Had to get liability insurance because I started doing other jobs where they're like, we need your insurance. And I was like, oh, I need insurance to do this? I just did it. I just went in and did it.
I can cut your grass, and they're like, no. Like,
Right, exactly. Yeah. So so then I learned all this stuff. I'm getting organized. I just knew I was willing to work, right? And I didn't have a plan. I didn't have a plan of like, this is my life goal, or I need to make this, or I need to do that. I just knew that I needed a certain amount of money for a certain amount of freedom, right? And I always had this thing of like, pay your house off, pay your car off, live debt free. It's always been kind of my mindset. I live like that now, I mean, of course I have some business debt, but by choice, and I just, all that time I'm a skateboarder, right? But at the same time I'm doing this in 1993, that was 91, 93, Schaefer started Skate Park at Tampa at the same time, right? So I would go there, volunteer there, be part of that. So 4 years after I started my lawn service, I'm trying to think of the timeline here. Then I was like, hey, Brian, I want to come over there and work there.
You were like full-time in like 98, right?
By 98. I was volunteering in 97. In 98, I was full-time. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So, I was 20 years old, 17. I don't know, whatever. I graduated high school in 91. Yeah. 93, the park started. I was full force into, I started mowing lawns at that time. Park started, and it kind of, and then as I was growing that, Brian was growing the skate park. We had that thing in common that we're both doing businesses of like, so we had a natural developing friendship because we were going through the same sort of thing.
Well, you've talked about that before. Like you guys were kind of the only ones with money, like in your like early to mid 20s, where it's like, hey, dude, do you want to go to a steak dinner? We can go.
Yeah, and Rob Marinick, my lifelong business partner of like, my confidant, best friend, like
Raging Asian.
That's him. He's not now. He doesn't really rage anymore. He's pretty mellow.
He's
Asian.
The family Asian. Yeah.
He's pretty family mellow. Yeah. Rob is like the voice of reason.
Oh, he's awesome. Yeah.
So he was our third friend that had that. So
he was a CPA.
He's a CPA, and he's like, oh, you have a business? I'm like, yeah, but we're hanging out. He's like, what are you doing for this? He's let me just do your books for you. I'm like, oh, people do books? Like, I didn't even know that. Like, I didn't know. And he's like, so he would do a P&L.
Who's going to teach you? Like, they still don't.
He would give me a printed out balance sheet and P&L every month. I didn't even know how to read it. I was like, yeah, cool, thanks. Because I just knew, like,
how much did I make? Okay, sick. Like,
and then
carry the two. Sounds good.
That was back when cash was king too. Like, so many people paid me in cash. I always had cash. That was one thing that was always nice, as a kid. Like, and when I say go to dinner and have money, we didn't have money.
Yeah.
We had enough money to choose our beer. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like to go to Chili's, to eat it. Like if we went to Ivaroni's, that was like a big deal. Yeah, you know what I mean? It's like, oh, we're going to Ivaroni's, man. So Rob used to live in the apartments next to Ivaroni's. Really? Damn, Rob lives in the nicest apartments.
He's chilling.
They were the nicest apartments in Tampa at the time, I think. Except for probably some places down here in South Tampa. But up where we lived, those were the nicest ones. So damn, I'm talking a lot here. Where are we talking? I lost track.
So you're grown, basically getting a job full time at the skate park. So you're kind of through the volunteering, and I think I've heard you talk about like you were kind of just doing a little bit of everything. So you were like working the door, working the shop, kind of going through that process, and that just developed, over the years.
Yeah. Well, there were two other full time employees. It was like Brian, the owner, two other full time employees, and maybe me. So there's like 3 or 4 of us, maybe 5 at the most. Someone part time. So you had to do everything. It wasn't like, oh, you're the guy that does this and you're the guy that does that. It wasn't like working for a company where there's like these defined roles. You just did whatever needed to be done. Shit, it's still like that at my agency now. It's like you just do. We only have 10 people, so it's like you're doing stuff that you don't know. Like we're trying to figure out what was wrong with the refrigerator yesterday. You know what I mean? Like, of course, you just do whatever needs to be done. So I started the skate park, and it's like you're just jumping in. Once again, jumping in, right? Learning a little more. Then Rob's like, as we're collecting money all the time now, it's like, hey, you need to learn how to track this stuff, Ryan. Like Rob would tell me that. He's like, I can help you learn how to do this. So he taught me how to use Quick. This is like the beginning of the email. Rob was like, you don't need an email. Rob was like, you need an email address. I was like, no, I don't. What the hell do I need an email address
for? I remember emailing you, hey, do you want to skate today?
Yes.
That's we'll right. Get into that. But that was the dawn of all that. And, you guys were the first ones to be online. And
that's all because of Rob.
Yeah, and one thing that I miss that I was gonna mention to you that I think we've even talked about a little bit in the past is the articles you used to do for the travel. Like and it wasn't like, hey, like here's a couple photos. Like you would write like day one, like full, like
I love I remember writing about you in them.
Yeah. Like, you know, trips to Woodward and stuff like that, and contests, and, you know, going to here for day trips and stuff like that. I mean,
well, they were only print magazines at the time, and very few people were doing blogs and
like
skateboarding.
3 of them. It was like the Transworld, Thrasher, maybe Big Brother was kind of like phasing out when I came in.
Skateboarder might have been around at that time.
Skateboarder was still around, and then maybe like one other. And,
so no one was doing that. I always
as far as online skateboarding content, you guys were probably the only ones.
Man, that's right. And we used to have like a following for that. It was crazy. People would like know us when we went. And then brands started flying Rob and I places to cover their events just for our website. I thought it was insane. And we weren't even getting paid to do it. We were just getting all of our expenses covered. I'm like, this is the best. But we didn't know. Because once again, it was just like with the lawn service. I jumped into the skate park where I'm like, I just want to be around skateboarding. Maybe I can make this into a job for a few years and maybe have to go back to college or mow lawns again. That's what I thought was going to happen. I just figured there's no way. And I probably went 10 years at the skate park thinking, anytime there's no way we're going to make it to next year. It was always just like such a struggle, you know? But I mean, I made less money, obviously significantly less money working at the skate park for the first few years than I did mowing lawns.
So, and that's where one of the first, I prepared you. I'm gonna tell the audience right now, I'm not putting Ryan on the spot for all of these questions. There'll be a couple, but when we were going over things, I asked you, when you were at the skate park, or if there was a different time, is that when you were like, wow, there's money in skateboarding? Like these, when did that epiphany kind of happen? You know, I guess and I'm sure it was a multi-phase thing. We'll go over that in more detail, but like, when was it like, wow, they just gave us $10,000, like, or X, you know what I mean? Insert amount of money.
So there's a few things that when made me realize that Skate Park of Tampa had a heartbeat and a hope to be something amazing, right? That was probably when Duff's was the title sponsor of Tampa Am and Tampa Pro, and DVS was like, we want to be the sponsor. And I was like, oh, okay.
Like there was a bidding war almost going on. Yeah,
and it was closer to, I think there might have been at that point. I can't remember that, but I remember that I think DVS gave us $90,000, and I was like, holy shit! Like to me, that was like
that's insane.
May as well pass over $1 million to me right now. I was just like, this is crazy. And
that's like 2003 though.
That went,
like, because really, I think Duff's was like 2000, 2001, and then like DVS kind of working its way in like 2002, 2003. Like that's serious. And then
Brian had a good relationship at Quicksilver, so they gave us money. So and then Shorties came in big, and it was like 90,000, 50,000, 40,000, 30, and we were getting all this. I was like, whoa! And so then maybe it was 2003, 2004, 2002, somewhere around there. After Tampa Pro, we had money left over, and I was like, whoa, this is crazy. We have money left over. And then that's when we invested in retail, and we bought a bunch of, we built up the inventory. And then that guy, Barrick Weiser, that worked, my lifelong friend, I say, my lifelong friend, who's still my friend, he joined us, and he helped turn the shop around into like what it is today. So it was the beginning of it, because we didn't really know retail either. We just tried. We were just trying,
When it came to Tampa skateboarding, for me, I obviously didn't. I was very young and didn't know all the background, round things and stuff like that. But I think it was around like 05, 06 when first place was $20,000, and I was like, wow, like
that was a lot. And
that was 2005. I mean, that was crazy. That was a car.
And it was funny. A lot of those contests back then had bigger purses than that. We were just trying to keep up. I think whatever year Nike came in, that's when the purse went up to $100,000 that year.
That's what
it was just like that was crazy. And Nike came in, it was like 3 times what DVS was doing. And when Nike came in, that was when they started flying us out to Portland all the time. We would have these meetings, and all these like higher up Nike people would come in, and all these creative people and all these like marketing people from different parts of Nike, not Nike SB, and they would come in and give these opinions. And it was like opinion after opinion after opinion. And I just sat and listened to it all. Like a lot of it went over my head, but after it, I was like, damn, I learned a lot. I mean, I learned a ton. What
was it like, I guess, initially, like sitting in the room with these like kind of big decision makers, where it's like, on you guys' scale, this was massive, but to them, this was just another part of their job. Like, what was that like being a part of those conversations?
It was, I mean, we got introduced to like all kinds of different people, like that guy Tinker Hatfield, who's like the legendary designer. Sandy Bodecker, who like he's known for taking soccer to, took over soccer in Europe, took it from Adidas. And so then he was the lead in skateboarding. He put the team together in the original team together in Nike SB so they could infiltrate skateboarding and do what they've done, So meeting these people, I was just like blown away. I would have to go back and look them up and see all the stuff they did. And it was a really cool experience. And the fact that they gave us, and it felt cool when you got it, like all of a sudden you felt it was just different, man. And this always feels cool. You get off the plane and someone's holding a sign that says your name. Yeah. That happened. And I was like, oh shit, this is like, it was just different.
And you're going to first class to these things. And you're staying at nice hotels.
It was a different level.
And they're even paying for you to come out there in some aspects.
So there was that's when I figured out, okay, there's money for skate park.
Yeah.
Like skate park, like we can figure this out, and this can be a viable business between Nike, and that's when Nike started coming in hard in retail too. And we were like, at one point, I think when I was a skate park at Tampa, we were the #1 SB dealer that there was. So we're moving so many Nikes, and I don't think I even understood it all when it was happening. It was just like happening.
I don't think anybody did. Yeah. I mean, there was small skate shops being put on the map that were like we're viable.
Yeah.
This is 80% of our sales. And, I'll go on through the evolution of, when, as far as looking at money in skateboarding, the number 2 thing, and this was not like as big of a thing, was when, Maloof did $100,000 for first place.
That was, yeah.
Now I understand, or I think I was old enough at that time to realize that was like a special kind of thing that they were trying to like really gain notoriety at that point. But I was like, wow. And then the real thing when I was like, holy cow moment was when Volcom sold for like a couple $100 million to Vanity Fair. And that's when I was like,
I figured out the companies had money, and then you'd have those weird, Volcom is one of us, right? They come from us. But like, it was interesting with the Maloofs because they're not one of us, and they came into us and they wanted a piece of us. I still haven't figured out why they did all that. And we benefited like greatly from that. Yeah. We ended up running their contest 5 times. Yeah. I went to South Africa 5 times.
I would give Chris Cole $1 million.
Yeah, they bailed on that one. I think. Yeah, they ended up bailing on that one. But they would invest all this money in these courses and these events. Dude, they would throw their welcome. They would throw like media parties at the Palms and fly us all out there and put us up at the Palms.
I remember hearing stories, like side stories and stuff like that, of like this pro got a little too crazy at the tables. They'd call, the Maloof brothers, and they'd be like, no problem, brother. Hey, listen, we'll kind of take care of it. Please don't do it again. There's a little bit of money waiting at you on the cage. And if you lose this, go back to your room. Thanks so much for playing.
Hey, when that all...
Which is...
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. We were treated there like very special.
Like royalty,
really special. Yeah, like rooftop parties, everything's paid for. Like it was nuts. Private tables to gamble at if you wanted to. Like, I mean, that's not my level, but yeah, or my style. They, I don't know if I ever told you this.
Acquired taste.
I ended up going to court and testifying when that all fell apart. The whole Maloof. Okay. Really? I got called as a witness to go to court in Las Vegas, and as a I can't remember. I just basically had to tell them about intellectual property and skateboard because they kept talking about these databases.
So you were like an expert witness, basically.
No, I wasn't an expert witness. I testified. I was not. Okay. I was like, well, whatever you call it. I was part of the. I think I was part of the defense.
Okay.
Yeah. Because it was this guy, Tim McFerrin, who ran it all for them. And then the Maloofs were suing him because he took the idea and everything and started doing these things in South Africa, took over what they were trying to do. And it was interesting because I guess the South African government was paying for these crazy contests we were doing down there, flying everyone to South Africa in the middle of nowhere. It was like an hour flight outside of Johannesburg. Yeah. It was Kimberley, South Africa. It's like a little town.
I remember the photos of like the barbed wire fences and like all the gnarly things and stuff like that.
Definitely.
You guys were going like playing with lions and
super
stuff.
sketchy place, like kind of place if like you're walking down the street looking at your phone that someone runs by and grabs your phone. Yeah. It was that kind of place. Yeah, it was pretty gnarly. I guess that the Maloofs were claiming that Tim McFerrin stole the databases to do the contest. And I had to basically testify and go, I'm like, there's no data. They're like, well, where's all the data? I'm like, it's in my phone. It's in my head. It's my relationships. That's it. There's no it's the reason we're able to do these contests.
Where are the contacts, Clements? Where are they at?
Yeah, it was like this thing, but it's not a thing. I'm like, yeah, I've done, at the time, I was like, I've been doing this for 20 years. I know everybody already. If they hire us, we can get everybody to show up. That's our jobs.
Absolutely insane. And through the experiences and everything. So you finish your tenure at skate park.
Let me tell you one more thing about skate park first, because there was a defining moment that I knew there was money for individuals in skateboarding, right? For like people that work at companies. Globe was publicly traded. Dwindle. Dwindle was part of Dwindle was part of Globe. Globe is on, I think, the Australian stock market. Yeah. And you could go look at what people made, and it was reported on this online blog called Shop Eat Surf. Yeah. Right? They reported salaries. So this guy Bob Boyle, who I'm friends with, he's the president of Dwindle. He's he was a pro skater, knew him as a kid, became friends with him, looked up to him. You know what I mean? Like, he's one of those guys. I'm like, hey, he's a good business guy. I respect him. Whatever. He made his salary for 1 year was $358,000. I was like, or maybe it was $398,000. I was like, this motherfucker's making $400,000 a year, really? And I remember like seeing him at Zoomies 100K, like an industry event, and kind of like, we're drinking, and I'm kind of like giving him a hard time about it. I think he was really embarrassed about it. I was like, no way. I go, it's not. No, I go, I think it's rad. I didn't know it was even possible, because we were broke for so long at skate park that I was like, we're just trying to make it work. And it took years and years and years to make a decent living there. So when I saw that, I was like, oh, but you're not going to make that kind of money working at skate park at Tampa.
No.
So now I guess you can lead into the next. Yeah, there you go.
So you move on, and you started Excel Management while you were at skate park, and then ended up transitioning with that, and then went on to starting TheBoardr. So I think before we get into that, again, another difficult question: what is a pro skateboarder?
Oh man, that's tough.
I know, because it's like, and I'll add on to that. You've just seen so many things about like, is it, hey, this dude should have been pro already. Hey, this dude has a board. Hey, a shoe. Hey, I know it's not an energy drinks, but you had energy drinks pushing the novel on a handful of dudes.
It used to be like the definition of a pro skateboarder was a signature skateboard. Mm-hmm. That used to be what it was, right? But then it got to where people that were a fraction as good as other people would have a pro board. And then what ended up changing was the barrier to entry. Back in the day, there were 4 factories in the world that make skateboards. Yeah. Now there's probably 50 of them. I mean, we can have a skateboard company at the end of this podcast. You just come up with a name, come up with a couple graphics, turn someone pro. When you have a company at the end of 1 hour, you can do that. So there's no more barrier to entry. Who do I call a professional skateboarder? What I call a professional is someone that came up a certain way. Okay,
wow. Okay.
It's you come up a certain way and you do it right, because you become a tastemaker. A tastemaker is what I consider a professional skateboarder. It's like Ashad, Sean Malto, Eric Costin, Nija, the new kids coming up, Cater. Like these kids that come up, Tyshawn, they're not only doing incredible things, but they're doing it in a way that everyone looks at it and wants, I want a piece of that. Mm-hmm. I would wear those Cater colorways. I want those Tyshawn shoes. Shad's currently the dopest dude on a skateboard, right? His shit's the best stuff out. His shoes even look as dope as he is. You want those because Ashad says those are cool.
And he's a nice guy.
Yes. And then Jamie Foy. There you go. Jamie Foy's another one, because he worked so hard. He's like literally the underdog and he's the people's champ. He's the biggest underdog, and he did it all despite the odds, right? Regular old white dude from Florida that made it happen in a big, big way. Those are professional skateboarders to me. Now there's 100 people that you could say that are like that, a credible pro that's like that did it right. That's not on that level yet is like Jake Anko. Came from Florida. He came up, skated the contest, filmed the parts, got a couple of Flow sponsors, put out more parts, got turned pro in a real company like Welcome, has a legitimate sponsor like Monster that travels the world, films, does real stuff, makes things happen. That's a pro skater to me.
I couldn't agree more. It's almost like it's not even checking a box. It's probably checking multiple boxes. And then it's like, skateboarding is incestuous is not probably the best word, but so, I guess, tight-knit is probably a better word, that it's like, we accept you or we don't. We'll accept you in any capacity as a skateboarder, but to call yourself a pro skateboarder, that's a completely different level. And I think even being recognized as a real amateur skateboarder is gaining its own title and its own momentum in the last 5 years. I think companies, 10 years, 15 years ago, it used to be like, oh, we just need like 2 AM dudes. Hey, these kids kind of rip. And now it's like, well, no, we're not just picking 2 kids that rip. Like, do they fit the brand? Do we see a future for them? There's a lot more of an algorithm that goes along with it.
Yeah.
When you're, and obviously going on with Excel, one of the things that I saw that was very interesting is when you're pitching the people that you're representing. And you know, I do want to say too, and not just because you're my friend, but something on your behalf, what I see you doing, and I know I'm sure you've gotten a lot of hate for it, is I see you're advocating for skateboarding. Not like, hey, I'm just representing these dudes and like I'm getting my piece and they kind of rip and, you know, I'll make sure they do okay. Like I really do see you being an advocate for these dudes and the way you talk about them and post with them and stuff like that. I mean, it's cool. So, you know, I appreciate that. That's awesome because we do need people like you to take care of our own. Absolutely.
Yeah. And that was the reason that we started in the first place, right? It was like, I think it was like hearing my partner Heath Brinkley that started it with me. He was, I think it was like, hey man, he was he's real close with P-Rod, you know, and he's like, hey, Paul's got this company that like collects his checks and pays his bills and stuff and does. I was like, really? He goes, would you want to do that? Paul's like looking to change, and I'm like, I mean, I don't know. That's how we started, right? Just basic taking care of people, business management, and then the more that people heard about that. Collecting checks, paying bills, setting up corps, setting up retirement plans, dealing with the lawyer, the CPA, the financial planner, the life insurance guy, just the holistic planning of someone's life. The more people that heard, the more people that were interested, right? And then I had visibility to everyone's contracts because now you know about all their money. And being a lifelong skateboarder, seeing their contracts, getting a comprehension of skateboarding from A to Z over like from the age I was 12, and at this point I was like 38 or 40, seeing all that going, oh, wow, I think I get this. And then someone going, hey, man, my Red Bull deal's coming up. Can you negotiate this for me? And I'm like, actually, I can because I know what 4 people make on Red Bull right now. I know your value. And yeah, let me get you in there and see what we can do. And that's really what it is. And what we started doing when we first started managing or negotiating contracts, we were doing it with like skaters that other agents weren't interested in. Because the only skaters that had agents at that point were like Sheckler, P-Rod, Bob Burnquist, like these high level dudes, right? No one was repping the guys that were making $100,000 a year, but we were willing to do it. And that $100,000 a year,
and we're probably being underpaid.
There you go. So that $100,000 a year was going to next thing you know is $150 a year. If they started winning like an Alex Sorgente, because we grabbed a Sorgente right before he started winning everything.
I remember that,
And I was like, dude, if you can do that, we can do this for you. He's like, shh, let's do it then. He had a couple of years he had a really good run.
Crushing it, No, and I mean, he was ripping and stuff like that. I mean, I just saw him like, you know, I watched X Games and stuff like that. I mean, he killed the Park Series and it's a great run and
made the podium.
Yeah, you know? I mean, that's awesome. And you know, one of the things I saw was that you were talking about, you know, I think it was in your 9 Club interview when you were with like Ryan, if you're sitting with Scuba Steve and Ryan Bobier over there and you're talking about, you know, a shot or who insert name and stuff like that with these companies, what is the algorithm that kind of goes into it as far as like, because, you know, like you said, they know what they're looking at. Like they obviously know who he is. So like, is there like, hey, you know, he's going to do this or he's going to end up on this podium or he has this many Instagram followers, or like, is there a thought process, or is it like more like a football kind of contract where like, hey, this wide receiver makes, you know, X amount of dollars a year, so we can pay him this.
This general statistics.
Is there a granular conversation, I guess?
The general statistics work to a certain extent, right?
Yeah.
Winning contests, social media following, those kind of things, those facts that everybody knows. But then there's that factor of like, does it matter if this person's name on something, does it sell? Because of that name. Okay. Does it sell because of that name? And is it the shoe or is the person? And that's a great argument to have, right? About any shoe. Did Stefan sell the shoe, or did the awesome design of the Stefan that Stefan did, by the way, did that sell the shoe? What did it?
And I just saw the little auto. I think they did a little piece on him. I forgot. You know who I'm talking about. If I mentioned, it was like a little 9-minute piece.
Oh, okay.
So hyped for him.
Oh,
like
cool. Yeah.
It was like
great. Was it epically latered or something like that?
What it was. Yeah. I
haven't
knew
watched that one.
Yeah, it was like 9 minutes, and everybody, and it was cool, like you said. And to circle back real quick, everybody was hyped for him.
Yes.
Like everybody's hyped for him, and you know, recognized him for his craft, and they were like, that was the first 3 minutes of the little mini series. Was like, he's a rad person and he rips. And then, by the way, he had the shoe.
Perfect guy for that shoe, right? Because he's the perfect ambassador for it. And he's the one that designed it and fought for that design and everything, as you probably know.
Yeah, I saw it.
So that's the thing.
He's like first draft. He's like hard no. Like super hard now.
I have we used to work for him. So I have the full inside story of all that. And it's pretty crazy. Yeah. But he did, he stuck by his guns. He had it the way he wanted it, and he would not settle for less. And that's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And 10 years later, they're still
tremendous respect.
Crushing. Yeah.
Yeah. And I want to give another example, right? And then sometimes a brand will see something too. Like I can tell you that I'm working with Jamie Foy at New Balance.
Yeah.
The brand director, the guy that does New Balance numeric for the skateboarding division of New Balance, he was like, "Hey, you manage that Jamie Foy kid, right?" I was like, "Yeah, we do." And I'm close with him, like we're friends. And he's like, "We should talk about him. Can you bring him in the office?" I was like, "You're down?" I had hit up every brand for Jamie, and no, everyone's like, I don't know. And Jamie was on Diamond. He ended up on Diamond.
No, I remember. Yeah, it was like Nick Tucker, Tori, and when they were trying to make a run at it. And the shoes were sick. They were fine. Shoes.
Yeah, Jamie, Tori always backed Jamie. So Tori was the first one. He's like, "Hey, I want to put Jamie on Diamond." I was like, "For sure." No one else wants him on.
Yeah, because they were on like, I mean, a lot of people were on Grizzly, but they had a couple things in common and stuff like that.
Red Bull. He was around them. Yeah, Red Bull was the first group. Tom Curran at Red Bull was the first one to give Jamie a chance. And he didn't give him a chance until like 6 months after he gave Zion one. At first it was going to be Jamie and Zion, and then he's like, "Nah, we're just going to take Jamie." Anyway, I'm getting too skateboard detailed here. I don't want to get too skateboard detailed.
But no, it happens. Basically, there's more than just the algorithm you were kind of talking about. It's like, will they sell product?
We call it the magic. Do they have the magic? That's what we call it in the office. It's like the magic. Shot has magic. Nora's got the magic. Yeah. Jamie Foy's got the magic. Mark Gonzalez has the magic. And it's funny. Those are our top 4, but our top 5 really is in Felipe Gustavo. He has the magic. His magic is the hustle. It's like amazing what he has. The dude's like 32 or 33, and I don't think he's peaked yet. He's at the Olympics right now. He just called us yesterday, FaceTimed us yesterday from the Adidas house in Paris. Yeah. And so you just, and that's the thing in skateboarding. It's being a tastemaker. And that I stole that from Jamie Hart at Advance. You just tastemaker. We need the tastemakers here. Tastemaker is what we look for in management.
Tell me about, and this kind of a twofold question, as far as having hard conversations, which I'm sure, but let me narrow that down. What happens if somebody comes to you and is like, "Ryan, I want to ride for insert whatever, I want to be on Delta, or I want to ride for, Gatorade."
Delta I might go for.
Yeah, you may have a contact there.
You know what? It really depends, man. It's very unique. Usually the answer is we don't do that because we're not door-to-door salesmen, right? Yeah. And we've tried many times to hit the right brand with the right skater where we have a vision, the skater has a vision, and you can meet with the brand. You might even get a meeting with the right person. I've done that before. And they're like, "Wow, this is cool. This is an amazing presentation." We're just not doing that. Our marketing plan is set for the next 3 years. So you have to have, if you have the littlest in, that's what's most important. That's what you need. You need someone interested in skateboarding at that brand that is willing to take a risk and advertise within skateboarding and do something special at skateboarding in skateboarding. That's what it takes.
So I mean, there's a lot to do with like just magic and likability. Like you can rip, but it's like, are you cool like to be around? Like, do kids like you? Do they think you dress like? Do you show up to a demo and are you going to sign autographs? Like, are you going to like? Are you going to be a real person?
Marketability, personality, cool. How cool you look, man. I mean, that's a real thing. That's why every skateboarding is a sport to a certain extent. It's very athletic. We all know that, but it's an art, man. It's an art.
I would watch videos and I would be like, cool, I'm going to dress like that. And I would wear like the same color scheme, like, like when the S, like Medimati was all going on and stuff like that. I can't tell you how many pairs of the suede Excel's I had. The brown ones. Yeah. I mean, I wore those and the black ones.
Those were a hot item.
That was the shoe.
And I think if to take it one step deeper in skate, it's just like anything, right? It's
of course.
Like the way their hair is, the glasses they wear, the tattoo placement, the shirts, just the way they hold their hands when they skate, all that shit. That's the art. That's what makes it special. It makes it attractive, and then you're like, "That's my dude," or "That's my girl." It could be north.
So, was there a vision for the and sometimes you get involved in different parts of their career, and the earlier is the better. Is there like, some type of guidance or anything like that, or are there even times when you're like, "Hey, dude, like you're kind of blowing it," or like, maybe you should, think about this, or
more like guardrails.
Yeah.
Just guardrails. It's like, hey, if they go too far out of it,
can only be so controlling.
Yeah. You just we say like 85% skateboarding in your for your social. You know what I mean? It's like you want to see like a shot at his house. You want to see one of his cars once in a while. You want to see him do I don't know, donuts, or like, you know what I mean? You want to see that. And
Monster did that whole piece at him when they sent him to like the like Porsche track or whatever.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
And they did like a whole, like that was the whole Monster commercial. Was him doing that.
There's so much stuff I don't remember. Of course. You know what I mean? But yeah, for him, that's Shad's into cars. That's interesting.
And I'm into cars, and I remember that. I'm
there you go.
That's super rad.
There you go. He's got he's always rebuilding a car, remodeling a car. It's like, he's got some old Chevy pickup truck in his garage. Like, that's the allure of someone that makes him special. Like, he's really into something, you know? And Jamie, Jamie's into cars too, which is kind of cool. And then like Nora, she's doing artwork. She has an art show. She just texted me. She's like, this guy's bugging me about this, and I'm trying to work on my art show right now. It's like, that's another thing you do for them is like, you take the phone. Like, I was like, oh, do you need me to make a phone call then? Because I'll tell them to leave you alone, let you focus on your thing. Because that's the thing is like a skater, they're going to get hit up by everybody. Yeah. Hey, we need you to do this, do that, do this.
This contest, this tour, this place. And you're going to be there too.
And you got to go. I come in there and go, what do you want to do? What are your goals? Like Jamie's got goals about so many video parts he wants to drop this year. The goal for us is to go like, well, then he's not doing this. He's not doing that. He's invited to that. He's not coming. His focus is this only. And that's what we help with, because you're going to get hit from every angle. There's certain things he does because he likes it so much. Like he's going to things at Woodward this week, because he wants to be there, and you're not going to stop him from having fun.
And he's entitled to that, 100%.
Yeah, but if Jamie were spending all of his time fishing and riding his wave runner like he does, those are things he likes to do. If he did that 85% of the time and skated 15, that would be like, hey, dude. We look at what got you where you are. You have to. We say you have to double down on what got you here. You don't reach a certain level of success and be like, that's right. And now I'm going to do this.
Yeah.
I mean, look at you. You're going for this. You have these goals in law. You're not going to all of a sudden be like, you know what? Reach that. I'm just like going to do this kind of law now. I'm going to be the best at that. You're like, wait, you just spent 10 years trying to be the best at this. Now you're
hungrier. Yeah.
Yeah. You're going to switch it up and be something. That's hard to do. And skateboarding is limited. Your time frame at the level you do it, you have a limited time.
You probably, I would say you get a good probably 15 years. Like if you're lucky to get noticed around like 15, 16, and that's rare. 10 years ago, 15 years ago, the average age of getting noticed was probably between like 18 and 21, maybe even a little older.
It's younger now. It's way younger now. It's way younger now because of social media.
Yeah,
and you can say, and then everyone rips. The level's so high. So it's like, who do you pick?
12-year-olds doing like kickflip front people. Nobody knows what I'm saying, by the way. Really hard tricks.
Yeah. It's like, why? Yeah, you get those details. Yeah, it's funny. Usually I talk about skateboarding specifically. Yeah. So it's like, you gotta watch how deep you go. You're
putting up guardrails. Are you giving them? And I know you're definitely giving them financial advice as well, but like, are you giving them life advice in the fact and encouraging people? And I guess in all facets, like, I see so much health content now. You see like Nyjah and P-Rod and all these people in the gym now, and that wasn't cool 15 years ago or 10 years ago.
No.
Like, are you having that conversations about, kind of creating like a holistic lifestyle? Like, hey, go do some things that make you happy. Go do some things that make you healthy. Start a family, like.
Yeah, especially being older now, right?
Yeah.
So you see, I look at these, like a lot of them could be, all of them that I manage could be except for Gons, could be my kids.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So yeah, they all, every one of them, yes, you talk about all that stuff and you give them advice like, hey, you're buying a house. Oh, you're not married. Don't buy that house with your partner right now. Buy that house as you. Yeah. And then down the road, if you get married, that's cool.
You have no idea how good of advice that is. Like the headache that creates, like it is like, it's an asset.
Yeah.
You both own it. Like you could buy it with the guy down the street and it would cut the same way.
That's it. And so those sort of things like that, prenuptial agreement, those kind, just the general,
gotta have those hard conversations,
the general life stuff. Yeah. Or if they have a little extra money, we're like, hey, we want to start a SEP IRA for you right now. Or they're in a different level. We're like, hey, you should do a 401k. Here's why. Those kind of things of like why this is important and try to get people to pay their houses off, try to make them buy their cars cash. I know this is advice no financial planner wants to hear that pay your house off, but it's like those sort of things. And I mean, that advice more was like, it was before every house was $1 million. Yeah. And it's like now every house is like, it's so expensive. It's almost impossible to pay your house off. But yeah, times have changed with that. But yeah, it's the general good life advice. And if they're partying too much or like hey, this is how you got here. Like this, having and then talking to other industry
people.
Like
waking up at noon isn't gonna like really work for you in the long run. Like
those kind of things. Or lead by example. Hey, I did this, I did that. This worked. Hey, here's where I made a mistake. Tell them how I've messed up in my life, the mistakes that I've made, and just being honest with people. we usually work really well with the smarter our clients are, the better
I can see that.
You know what I mean? Because then they really understand. Because a lot of time the smartest people know they need management and representation for everything in their lives, right? Yeah. You don't just manage your own stock portfolio. No. You have a professional do it. You don't sue someone without a lawyer if you're not a lawyer, and if you're a lawyer, you still get a lawyer. It's like, why wouldn't you get another professional opinion? That's how I feel like with skateboarding.
Like he who represents themselves has a fool as a client, I think the saying goes. Something I probably butchered that, but I think that's what the saying is. Yeah,
that's pretty good. Yeah, because it's so rare that ever happens.
Of course. But I mean, even when you get in a certain level where it's like, once you, especially when you start having, the 6-figure set aside and stuff like that, the people that are blessed to do that, you need to get a professional. Don't just go buy Bitcoin. Let's spread this out and diversify your risk.
Yeah. And it's fine to buy Bitcoin if you've already done this, and this.
Yeah, check these 6 other boxes.
Oh, you own a house, you have a 401k, you're invested in a couple other things. Oh, you're going to buy some Bitcoin and maybe take a chance. Obviously, it was a good risk, but yeah, of course, it's about being smart. And then, and we want everyone to have, our clients to have fun. It's not like you save every penny. But at the same time, you have to it's just about being responsible. But a disciplined and balanced life, I mean, that's what brings joy and fulfillment. They already have a fulfilling career. That's the thing. And you got to keep them on track with that fulfilling career and just have enough other things that keep their interest in that fulfilling career for that to be number one. Does that make any sense?
Absolutely. It absolutely makes sense. And I think you really hit the nail on the head from one of the first things that you said, that the timing, the runway is so much shorter than most careers. I mean, most careers you can kind of get up and fall and, get back up again and stuff like that. Skateboarding doesn't have that. Most dudes probably have a really fruitful 5 years of their high earning years.
And high earning years for some guys might be $75,000 a year. So they're just
living in California.
Yeah.
Or New York or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. So it could not be a lot. But where if you have a career as a lawyer, I mean, you can do it for 45 or 50 years, man. You can do it.
I hope
really.
No,
yeah, but you know what I mean? You can if you want. A doctor.
I hope I'm bringing on the next generation at that point.
But if you love your profession, you're because I always say, and I think we talked about this before, you're like, well, when are you going to call it quits or whatever? I'm like, well, I'm probably never going to quit, but I'm going to do less of what I don't like and more of what I like.
Yeah.
And maybe that means not working 12 hours a day, but it's like, that's the thing about finding something that you really love.
You let me know when you stop doing that. I don't know if it's in your blood to not work 12 hours a day.
Fuck, man.
You'll always be doing something.
I want to do something. I do things. I've had this whole conversation with my wife because I can be known as a frugal guy, and she's like, "When are you going to spend this money that you just been saving?" I'm like, she's like, "By the time you want to spend it, you're not going to be able to." And I'm like, bullshit. I'm like, I've always wanted to do stuff. I am into doing shit. I want to accomplish something every day. But right now I have this crazy opportunity, right? It's like, I am in a very unique position. So I take advantage of every single thing.
And nobody wants to go back and was like, wow, I should have done that really differently. Like I had it all. I knew I had it all. And I tell people, they're like, hey, and it's for those of you that think it's a smart aleck answer, they're like, hey, how's it going, Kevin? And I'm like, I've hit this point in my life where I'm like, I'm just taking it a day at a time. Day at a time. I really am. Like if I want to give 110% today, I'm not as concerned with what happened yesterday. I'm not as concerned what happened tomorrow. I just want to give 110% today, and then we'll figure it out. I want to bring up 2 moments in my life, and we've shared a lot. I mean, you've been a dear friend and basically part of our family for probably the better half of 20 years.
I mean, your dad's like my OG mentor.
Yeah.
Really. He was the first one to ever go you're fucking up. You need to be doing this, do that, do this, do this, do that, do this. And I was like, oh shit. I didn't even, I was just shocked that he saw so much in us at the skate park as being these young entrepreneurial type guys that he would not hesitate to give me great advice. And all the shit, even if I didn't agree with him at the time, 5 years later, I was like, shit, he was right.
He was and we'll go on this because obviously we're both very close with my father. He would tell me, and he 100% meant it. And it was tough, a tough love to say the least. But he's like, hey, dude, if you're not gonna crush it at life, basically, and I'm kind of paraphrasing, I'm not gonna put a lot of time into you, because he was so busy and he was so successful, and it was a place of love, and it wasn't trying to be controlling or anything like that. I mean, my dad was at every contest. He was at every time I was at the skate park. He was driving a half hour, to take me. He was driving me up 16 hours to Woodward.
Yeah.
I mean, when he made the commitment to me, it wasn't just a normal dad, I'm going to give you some cool advice. It's I'm going to be your guy.
He retired the first time, at 45?
Yeah, he was. I was 12 years old, and he was like, I was 12 years old, and we just did. It was the coolest. I work so hard, and part of the reason I work so hard is because I hope with my son that I can like have that time between he's like 11 and like 15, 16, where we can just like.
That's cool.
What do you want to do, dude? Like, let's like, you want to go do this?
That's cool.
Yeah, and then when I was 16, he got the new job opportunity, and I think he was there for like 15 years. He said he was going to do it for 2, and I was like, dude, I gotta go to college. Like, we can hang out kind of, but like, I gotta go to this next chapter of my life. And he's like, all right, I'll do it for 2 years. And then he was there. But yeah, he was never, he liked people. Like even though I would tell people like, if he wasn't saying anything, he just had like a solemn face. Mm-hmm. People would be like, is your dad like pissed or something like that? I'm like, no, that's just his face. He's really stoked to be here. But he always, appreciated you and cared for you and, a handful of other people, but it was because you were killing it, and you had the ability to do great things.
Well, he sees something. It's being older, you see something in someone younger that he saw that what we had there, and I see it in people now. So I take people. We that event Swamp Fest.
Yeah.
The kid that owns it, Trey Jones. Yeah. Like when I met him, I was like, I got to know him a little bit. I'm like, this kid's the best. Yeah. And now I'm like. I was just on a conference call with him earlier today. I'm like, we're going to do this. We're going to do that. We're going to do this. I got this idea, that idea, that idea. And he's like, oh, shit. And he didn't agree with all of it. Yeah, and that's great because when you're 29 and some 50-year-old guy's like, we need to do that. And he's like, no, dude, that's not what we want to do. That's not. I'm like, trust me. Yeah. I was in the same exact spot as you in 1999 in Skate Park of Tampa. Yeah. I see what you're doing, and I can help you get it to this next level. And,
I'll keep it short and sweet, but like, the history and I only know so much about my dad and stuff. He only shares so much. He's a solemn guy, but I mean, when you get him telling stories and stuff, I mean, when you hear about him, working at some sketchy discount auto parts in Miami Lakes in the late 80s, and you're like, this guy worked, this gang and this kind of, but we like invite him to have their car show here, and everybody was like, okay, don't mess with that store, like just like crazy little like quips and stories. I'm like, who thinks of that stuff? That's and cool. It was like. It was just he dedicated his whole life to me. I mean, it was like, I am where I am today. We all know that because of my dad. And yeah, I worked my tail off and did what I did. But I mean, like the foundation that he set up for me was like ridiculous. And I was very lucky.
You had some great guidance.
Yeah.
I still do. I'm supposed to go to, I think I do dinner with him next week or the one after. Yeah. It's like, and I still get that guidance.
Yeah. And he's like, he's just stoked. And he's a character, to say the least. But I want to talk about 2 surreal moments in my life, and then go on to the question. So number 1 was when Lil Wayne came to the skate park, I think the first time, and I walked up to you. I think it was you. I want to say Rob was there, and I want to say it was Filmer Joe, and I was probably like 16, 17 years old, and I was like, hey, what's up, Ryan? And I was taking off from the contest, and you could have easily been like, hey, dude, yeah, see you later, like kind of like brush me off or something like that. You were like, hey, man, like. And it was just kind of like off, but it was like you weren't like trying to get like there was something there. Like you were almost like, I can't say anything, but like just kind of hang out for a minute. And Lil Wayne got off the tour bus, and I was like, it was one of the most surreal moments of my life, because that was when Wayne was like, he was there. I mean, he was. I mean, not that he isn't always there, but that was cool, and that was like, wow, that was amazing. And then the other time was when we were at Vert Alert, Salt Lake City. Yeah. First year that they did it.
Yes.
And we're at dinner with Tony Hawk. And
did we go to dinner with Tony Hawk?
Yeah. So he did the after party kind of deal at that restaurant. Yeah. And I was there with you guys, and then he had like the people that were skating and the people that put it on and stuff like that.
Oh, I remember now. We all had a table. Yeah.
And he shouted you guys out.
Oh yeah. That was
and he's like, I want to thank TheBoardr for doing everything that they did and putting on the event and helping us manage this. And obviously Tony Hawk's the GOAT, the OG.
When Tony says your name, it's a big deal.
Yeah, and I'm like, so, and then for me to be even like the same room of like somebody that we all idolize, what is that like to like work with, talk to, work with your heroes and these people that are like this is.
It's a great question.
Yeah.
With Wayne, with all these guys, Tony, Wayne, Mark Gonzalez, all these guys I get to be around. It's like, I think the fact that I appreciate who they are, but we're still there to do a job, right? And we still try to keep it as as real in business as possible. And Tony has been around me when I'm like talking shit about skating and talking shit about people. He's been behind me before where I was like talking shit about like, this fucking dude, bro. And Tony's like, damn, tough crowd. I was like, oh shit, I didn't know you're behind me. He's like, damn, you talk like that with that. I'm like, well, you just heard it. I mean, that's just the real shit. But that's the thing. He knows it's real. We're real.
You're skateboarders. You're genuine.
Yeah. And when we were doing when Vert Alert was becoming a thing, and I didn't want the typical formats that they were doing in vert contests. All Tony's team, Tony's never on the calls. Yeah. Tony's team's on the calls. So
what is it? 3 1-minute run, best run counts.
That's what they would want. 3 1-minute. I was like, no, that's what it was. It would be like 3 45-second runs. It was like real picky, whatever.
Standard
best
contest.
Run counts, typical contest, crown a champion. You're done. I'm like, fuck that. That's what killed Vert. You guys practice the same run all week, and then you go practice the same run before the contest, and then we get to see the same run again in the contest. Maybe you change one trick. We're not doing that. We needed this format. And they're like, Tony doesn't want to do that. I'm like, fuck this, man. Tell him to change his mind. They're like, you have to tell him. So they put me on a Zoom with Tony, and I had to tell him. And I think that's it about keeping it real. Of course, I'm respectful. I'm not cursing at him. I'm like, hey, this is how you should do it. And then Wayne hired us to do some things for him. He wanted to own a skate park. He wanted to do this. So I did numbers for him for a skate park. I was like, hey, don't start a skate park. Yeah. Like, that's like the hardest business in the world. I know the ins and outs of it. Do a brand or do something, or just dabble in skateboarding and keep it fun for yourself. So we would just give him honest advice, And then he wanted skating on one of his tours. We did that for him, and I got to ride on it. It was cool. Yes, it's great. I got to ride on the bus. I'm like around everybody. I got all access passes. I'm standing next to, I don't even know who I'm saying. Mac Main is like on my bus with me. It's just like a big. It's just like it's a big deal. But then you treat it like with care and respect.
I'm here to be a professional.
That's it, man. I would just keep my head down and work. It's funny, those guys, I was around all the guys, Young Money, for like a week. I don't know if I ever told you this story. And I would just have my MiFi, my laptop on the tour bus, and I'm just like working every day and whatever. We'd be at the show. We'd do what we need to do. I'd go back to the tour bus and work. And they saw me, because we were living on the tour bus, and they saw me change one day. I was always wearing long sleeves. I didn't have my hands tattooed at the time, but I had a full bodysuit tattoos. They freaked out. They were like, yo, what the fuck, man? Yo. And they kept calling me Brett Favre. That Brett Favre, right?
Yeah, like straight-laced quarterback guy.
Yeah, this Brett Favre looking ass. and I was like, yeah, I got more tattoos than anyone on this tour. And they were just like, damn. There was like a different, and they saw then I had like a little bit different kind of credibility with them. Before that, I was just some white guy that was like, organizing skaters. But yeah, just shooting people straight, man. Same with Mark Gonzalez, and I'm the biggest fan. I'm actually more of a fan now than I was when I was a kid. And people trip on me when I put Mark on my story. They're just like, "Oh, how are you with Mark Gonzalez?"
Like I'm global phenomenon. It's not just like our little area of skateboarding. It's like he's probably bigger in other places, honestly.
Yeah. And then I think with Tony, everyone knows Tony, but with Mark, it's this like. But Tony's like a celebrity, more or less, right? Yeah. And so, but Mark, it's like different, and there's like super fans. It's like, it's crazy. So people will hit me. I'm like, how do you know Mark Gonzalez? I'm like, dude, I got this opportunity to manage him 10 years ago, and we still manage him. So when you see me with Mark, I'm technically working. I'm working for him. I'm there working. And I just take it seriously like that, Granted, we have fun, but at the same time, it's just like, yeah. But to me, it's great, because it's funny, like, I don't know anything about, I don't pay attention to pop culture. My wife always makes fun of me if I'll sit next to someone on a plane. I'm like, yeah, that movie, like something about Mary, that girl that's what the hell's her name? I seriously can't forget her. You know what I'm talking about? Something about Mary.
Yeah, I know the movie.
God damn it.
My wife's going to yell at me too. So that's
and so she we ran into her in the airport, and she like flew on the same.
You guys remember when you ran into Cameron Diaz?
That's her. That's who I'm talking about. It's not about Mary. That's her. That. Yeah, right? Yeah. And it's like, and I was like, what are you going to Tampa?
I can't believe I totally missed that. That was
I'm like, why are you going to Tampa? And she's like, my boyfriend lives there. I'm like, who's your boyfriend? Like, well, you have a boyfriend in Tampa? She's like, yeah, Alex Rodriguez. I'm like, oh, duh. Like, I don't know I don't pay attention to that shit.
Was it Rodriguez or Jeter, I thought?
I thought it was A-Rod. But
anyway. Yeah.
But,
you guys were just, like, jamming out with her and, like, chilling. Because it was at 5 a.m. To LAX or to LA?
It was a red eye home. It was a red eye home to Tampa. Yeah. And so then there's a direct every day. Yeah. And then so we're just being real with her. Everyone's trying to come up and get photos with her. We're not getting photos with her. We're just hanging out with her. And I think that's what people appreciate. They just want you to be real.
Tell me about when, I don't want to. We're gonna wrap up on a strong note, but I want to ask this.
Not
first.
Cameron Diaz or forgetting some name or
No,
something.
that was strong. But
Rothmeyer went to high school with her, by the way, and he's he's legit friends with her.
That's pretty awesome. When do you? And I think this is very helpful because you deal with so many people. Is there any time, and I'm sure you've done it, when you kind of cut bait with a client, or like, are there signs from the beginning that you're kind of like, man, like, maybe we shouldn't have like kind of went so far for this dude, or is it just like, when do you kind of recognize the signs of like maybe this, and a client is kind of a bad word, or, way to look at it. Let's kind of globalize it. When is it like, man, this is not good for me? Like, how do you identify that because you've been through so much?
Yeah, man, I have a bad habit of saying yes.
Yeah.
I say yes because I want to do it, especially if someone cool, someone you respect comes to you and like, could you try to do this for me? And even if I know, I'm like, man, and everything you read, everything you study, obviously I try to study and like keep up with like, hey, how do I be the most effective version of myself, right?
Okay.
And part of the way you're the most effective version is saying no to stuff you can't do well, or that you can't do, or that you shouldn't be doing, right? So it's taken me years and years and years of practicing saying no. It's more like, it's even like getting rid of shit that you collected that you don't need, or like, disposing of your old clothes or whatever. It's like just simplifying your life so you can do a really good job. So when we started the management business, we just cast a really wide net because we're like, we can manage a whole bunch of kids. Well, of course, like out of that net, like let's say there's
$100 sock deal, like we'll give you two. Like, dude, I've heard you talk about it before, yeah.
It's like, and someone will be like, yo, I got this DM and they want me to like post, and if I post, I can get this I got to post a discount code and I get 10% of every set. And you're like, dude, this isn't a deal. We can't go fight for this and work on this because you may make $120. We're supposed to make our 15% of that. We can't even like talk about this.
You probably shouldn't do it either.
That's the other part of it, is guiding.
Like, you want to look like cheesy. Yeah.
It's like knowing what to say no to and knowing what to say yes to, and pivoting and working where you can make a difference. Like the reason we started the design and build part of the company is because the event part changed post-COVID. So we're like, where can we make a difference? Well, we can make a difference designing and building skate parks. Where can we make a difference? Managing the right skaters. Because you can manage the wrong skater, and you're never going to change anything.
Yeah. And you just monopolize your time. I mean, 100%.
And that's part of it, right? It's like, and you have those, now it's a long interview process. Like, I'll give one example.
Really? Wow.
Yeah. Like,
okay.
It's like, you get to know them first, and you get to know their parents. Like that Zion F's kid that we managed, she's like the new superstar out of Miami. His dad and I were friends.
I didn't want to go too deep into the parents thing, but I'm glad you brought that up about, because, you get the, the celebrity parents, my kid's going to win X Games, and it's like,
Yeah. And I was friends with Richie, Zion's dad, for probably a year and a half, 2 years before. And then when he said what I don't want to say it like that, not what I wanted to hear. Yeah. It's like when we connected, I was like, dude, we're connected. I am so down. Let's do this.
Yeah.
Like, because we made this connect. And then it was like, once he trusted me 100%, it's that 100% trust, or maybe that 99% trust that you're going for, or whatever it is. You know what I mean? You trust me. I trust your advice. You're looking out for my kid. And I think it's when there's nothing they can give me that I don't have already.
Yeah.
I want to make money, of course. Duh. And I want to help create the best skateboarder ever and the most influential kid ever. But it's a matter of like picking and choosing the ones you can make a difference with. I think that's what I'm learning. I'm still learning it. I'll probably, retire knowing, not really knowing that. Like defining it perfectly is really hard to do, but you take a calculated risk with a client.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I want to end with this because I said I was going to end on a positive note. I know you have a lot of special people in your life. Is there anybody you want to shout out or thank?
I mean, it's really like, yeah, that's nice. First of all, thank you for having me on.
Of course.
Second, I always thank my wife. My wife is first. You know what I mean? Like, I wouldn't be sitting where I am without her, and she's well aware of that. My parents gave me this stability that I have, this like, I don't know what it is, the discipline or stability. And then it's everyone I work with as well. The people that have been with me the longest by my side, they Rob Marinick and George Angel, they don't hold back what they think, and they don't hold back their opinions. And that is the most important thing, is to have people around you that'll be very honest with you, because you can't have dick riders in your own group.
Yeah.
You can't have that. You know what I mean? And then it's the rest of the staff at TheBoardr, just the people that believe in me, the people that support me, and the few people in the industry that I'm like super close with that support me and believe in me and tell me the truth. I think that's the most, man. When someone tells you you're wrong, someone gives you their opinion, that's the most important, man. And you have to have the skin thick enough to be able to take that.
That's awesome. Well, thank you for coming on.
Thank you.
as always, it's no accident that Ryan Clements is where he's at today. Thank you for joining us, and we're out, man.
Thank you, Kevin.
See you next time.